Hello and welcome to update number 3 for my hobby open world game project. If you'd suffered through earlier videos, you might have noticed that development was a bit scattered. I was experimenting with terrain, world generation, and gameplay systems as ideas came up. That worked early on, but as the project grew, it became harder to reason about what was dependent on what, and when things were supposed to exist. So this update is about a shift in approach. I've stepped back from the feature work and moved to a more clearly defined roadmap with the explicit goal of building a solid technical foundation before layering more systems on top. The main issue I was running into was hidden structure. Systems were starting to make assumptions about what scene they lived in, what order they were initialized in, and which other systems already existed. Those assumptions aren't obvious at first, but they compound very quickly in an open world project. So the new guiding principle is simple: make lifetimes, ownership, and transitions explicit. The first foundational decision was fully committing to additive scene loading. Instead of one giant scene that owns everything, the game is structured around a small, persistent root scene and menus, loading screens, and world content that is then additively loaded. The idea here is that scenes are no longer responsible for initializing systems. They're just containers for content, which avoids the trap where logic is implicitly tied to scene load order. For the type of open world game that I'm trying to build, this is especially important because world content needs to be loaded, unloaded, and replaced without destabilizing the core systems. Point for the game. The responsibilities of the bootstrap mono behavior are intentionally narrow. We mark the mono behavior as don't destroy on load to ensure that it stays around between scene changes. We then register core services with the root service registry, initialize the game state machine, and then kick off the initial game flow by switching to the main menu game state. Since I haven't built the main menu yet, we then immediately move to the in-game state, which displays a simple procedurally generated terrain. One important rule is that only the bootstrap performs global initialization. Nothing else is allowed to opportunistically create core systems. That constraint keeps the architecture predictable and debuggable. To support this structure, I'm using a simple service registry. Conceptually, it's just a dictionary of objects keyed by type. Services are registered once, retrieved explicitly, and disposed in a controlled way. There's no reflection, no auto wiring, no static globals. Every dependency is intentional. There are actually 2 registries planned. The root services live for the entire application lifetime. Root services include things like scene loading, event dispatch, game state management, session management, and the save load system. There's a second registry for world-specific systems. This registry will eventually hold things like world session state, world streaming and chunk management, terrain and content pipelines, gameplay systems, AI, etc. When a world is unloaded, the entire world registry is disposed in one place. That single design choice should remove a mountain of potential cleanup bugs. Scene transitions are handled by a dedicated scene loader service. The important rule here is that no gameplay systems talk directly to Unity's scene manager. Instead, systems request transitions through the scene loader, likely through the event bus system. This centralizes additive load rules, unload order, debug logging, and error handling. It also creates a natural place to later add loading screens, streaming priorities, or transition effects without touching gameplay code. On top of scene loading sits the game state machine. Instead of UI actions or events directly triggering behavior, the game flows through defined states like main menu, world loading, in-game, and return to menu. Each state owns which scenes should be loaded, what services should exist, what happens on enter and exit. The current implementation is intentionally minimal. Exit the current state, enter the new one, and await both operations. I'm planning to add guardrails and transition validation, but even this basic structure removes a lot of ambiguity about what phase the game is in. The last core piece I've added is a lightweight event bus. This is not meant to be a global dumping ground for logic. Rather, it's intended to be used sparingly to broadcast high-level events between systems that shouldn't directly reference each other. It's deliberately minimal, type-based events, explicit subscribe and unsubscribe, no static global access. One important rule I'm following is that events describe what happened, not what should happen next. Game flow decisions live in the state machine or dedicated controllers. A few closing thoughts. None of these systems are especially exciting to look at, but they're the kind of work that determines whether a project survives long term. By slowing down and investing in structure now, I can move forward with more confidence when I return to world streaming, terrain generation, save load systems, and gameplay features. Progress will remain slow because this is a hobby project, but it's at least slow in a deliberate direction. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next update. Next on the list is more excitement like granular logging, build and platform configuration, and a session context. Pouring the foundation isn't especially thrilling work, but you don't want the house to fall over while you're putting shingles on the roof. I want to emphasize that this isn't a tutorial series, but more of a development journal. I've been leaning heavily on a number of other content providers for how the foundation of this thing is structured and plumbed. Of particular note is the Git Amend channel. Most YouTube tutorials fit squarely in the beginner category, but Git Amend covers topics in much more depth and at an intermediate to advanced level. I'm learning a lot from his channel and cannot recommend it highly enough. Link in the thing.